Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Tim's News Explosion on this Monday, the 8th of May, 2023. We are live on the Unshackled YouTube channel, the Tim Wilms D Live channel, and as always on the Wilmsfront Odyssey channel. And of course, if you want to ask a direct question, or even better yet, send through a super chat, you can do so by clicking the link into the live chat. Hello to everyone who has joined. It is 8:30 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria, where we had a victory for people power last week with Monash City Council cancelling its planned drag queen storytime event at Oakleigh Library on the May the 19th. Which they said was to celebrate Ida Hobbit Week. So there was going to be this drag queen, Sam T, who was going to be reading to children aged 1 to 6. At 1 year old, they can hardly even walk, let alone talk. Yet this is who the target audience was. And this photo here was, of course, from the council meeting in late April, where ratepayers voiced their opposition to the council's plans to go ahead with it. And now, thankfully, the council announced last Thursday their CEO, Dr. Andy Diamond, cancelled it, saying it was because of repeated threats of violence and intimidation against the event. And after consultations with Victoria Police. So Channel 9 Melbourne, they, on their report, they claim the event was cancelled because of a bombardment of death threats from neo-Nazis and white supremacists. No examples of or proof was provided outlining the so-called death or violent threats. And in fact, there was such a ratio on Twitter from 9 News' report here that they turned off replies here. They didn't want to, they couldn't withstand any more fact-checking there. Now, the report featured heavily Thomas Sewell. He's the main face of the National Socialist Network, because Ralph Barbette of the United Australia Party and Reignite Democracy Australia, led by Monica Schmidt, opposed their followers actually protesting at the library because there were children there. That was their argument. Thomas Sewell said that he was planning on giving this one a miss and letting the Conservatives step up and deal with the issue. But if the Conservatives won't hold the flanks or spearhead, I'll bring as many Nazis as possible to reinforce to the public that pedophile groomers must be destroyed. They must be challenged. They cannot be allowed to sexualize children. I look forward to seeing how many traitors Victoria Police can muster to defend a state-mandated pedophile event on May the 19th. Now, of course, National Socialist Network, they just don't call them groomers, but they call them pedo freaks. That's the banner that they unfurl when they're protesting grooming events. And Thomas Sewell joined Blair Cottrell and Joel Davis on their weekly live stream show last Thursday. Now, because Tom and the NSN were claiming credit for getting the groomer drag queen storytime event cancelled, the groomers themselves, they were pissed as, and led by none other than the Premier, Dan Andrews, now nicknamed Groomer Dan, went on another one of his famous rants against so-called hate speech on the floor of Parliament.
And my message to those people is very clearly, if you want to behave like the worst elements of the Floridian Republican Party, well, get to Florida. Head over there, where your hateful views might be worth something. They're worth nothing here. We won't stand for this sort of ugly behaviour. It's appalling. And I again make the point, it's not about free speech. This is hate speech, plain and simple. Plain and simple. It is wrong. It is out of step with the values of fair-minded, decent, mainstream Victorians. It is on the fringe. But enough about those people. Let's send the clearest message, Speaker, that equality is not negotiable, and despite the carry-on and the shameful behaviour of a small few, this government and this community remains committed to every single Victorian, no matter who they are or who they love.
Now, if it's a small minority, Dan Andrews, who are opposing drag queen story time, and apparently we're told that these are sellout events, albeit these libraries can only fit about 15 people, then how come they are constantly being cancelled? The city of Bundoora in inner Melbourne and the city of Casey in Melbourne's outer southeast also cancelled their planned drag queen story time for kids after community backlash. And but it's not stopping the groomers. Their next target seems to be New South Wales Library. I was sent this by a concerned viewer that there's a rainbow story time with Betty Confetti at the Goulburn Mulwary Library, and so it is promoted as a fun and sparkly rainbow family story time celebrating diversity and inclusion in our community. Will feature special stories, rhymes and songs, dancing to celebrate family and being yourself, suitable for children aged 3 to 8 and their families. Stories will be followed by creative craft for attendees. And now, after the cancellation, it wasn't just the groomers who were pissed. It seemed to be some of the conservative groups and activists who who were pissed that it was the National Socialist Network who appeared to cause the cancellation. This was from the Reignite Democracy Australia Twitter account. So its justification, this was the tweet, it must be cancelled. This has gotten out of hand. We tried to prevent this by appealing to the council respectively weeks before the event. They ignored us. We do not approve of protesting at a children event. And Rukshan Fernando, he thought that the cancellation was a bad thing because in a democracy, we must learn to tolerate ideas we do not like while challenging them through participation in civil protest when appropriate and ultimately seeking legal and political solutions. Monash City Council did not back down from hosting drag tourist time for children because they changed their mind on the moral and ethical objections to the concepts. Well, they're never going to change their mind, that council. I mean, they are clearly LGBT fanatics. And so he went on to say there's no place in our society to silence any group, particularly minority groups, through the use of violence and threats. And he went on to say that this type of silencing and cancel culture must be rejected wholeheartedly, regardless of the ideological objections one may have to the issue or groups involved. Now, later on in the evening, Rukshan reaffirmed that he opposed groomers and drag queen story time, but putting out that tweet saying we've got to reasonably persuade these radical groomers that to see the error of their ways. I mean, did Mao or Stalin or Hitler see the errors of their ways and change their minds? I don't think so. Now, we heard Dan Andrews' rant there. He claims that equality is not negotiable, and he's passed a whole bunch of laws already to crush opposition through new laws. New laws to crush dissent to the LGBT agenda, and now there is a push for his government to introduce LGBT vilification laws. So this was in the Guardian on Saturday by Kat Kelly. And so it says that advocates are urging the Victorian government to do more to protect the queer community after threats from far-right groups led to 5 Melbourne drag queen events being cancelled in the past 6 months. Well, they're saying it's a bad thing here. And so it goes further down here that lists all the different events here. So after Thursday's announcement, Victoria Police said the safety strategy for queer events is an issue for councils who should be preparing their own safety plans. Victorian Pride Lobby's Sean McKay said police councils and the state government needed to do more to make sure protect the queer community from threats and make sure family-friendly events could go ahead. He called for laws protecting LGBTQ people from vilification, which covers inciting hatred in the public sphere, whether online or on the steps of Parliament. Vilifying a person because of their race and religion is already illegal in Victoria and the Racial and Religious Tolerance Act. If we had stronger anti-vilification laws, if police were willing to enforce the laws that they have, if councils work to ensure that their local laws were enforced, then we'll be able to deal with these issues early on. And it also quotes Omar Hassan, the spokesperson, even though he seems like he's the spokesman for the campaign against racism and fascism, the Socialist Alternative Aligned Group, CAF, I call them BAF. He said it was irresponsible of councils to continue to see demands of the far right, cancelling these events, essentially granting these people a victory. Well, it is a victory. And it also quotes the Victorian Greens alphabet spokesman, Gabriella De Vitri, accused the state government of lagging on anti-vilification. The time to act was long ago. She said, noting in 2021, the government had agreed with expanding anti-vilification laws in principle, subject to funding, which never came about. So the Attorney General, Jacqueline Symes, told Parliament on Thursday Labor was committed to changing the anti-vilification laws, but said it would take 18 months as she had other work on changes to bail conditions and looking at raising the age of criminal responsibility. Minister for Equality Harriet Singh said in a statement the government was working to extend anti-vilification protections to protect alphabet Victorians and other vulnerable members of our community who experience enormous distress, discrimination and stigma. And apparently every council across Melbourne has promised to raise the pride flag on Ida Hobbit Day on 17th of May. And they also quote The Guardian, this discrimination law expert, Liam Elphick, has said if the government had taken steps 2 years ago when it committed to changing the law enforcement would have greater powers to take action against the attacks on the Monash event. By leaving this gap in our hate speech laws, it means that councils, law enforcement and the community have far fewer tools to stop hate speech against alphabet Victorians than we do for other groups. Now, in the last Parliament, Fiona Patten of the Reason Party, she proposed the Racial and Religious Tolerance Amendment Bill, which would expand that act to include outlawing vilification on the grounds of sexual orientation and gender identity, with including the criminal provisions that are in the Racial and Religious Tolerance Act that Blair Cottrell, Neil Erickson and Chris Shortis were convicted under for the Bendigo Mosque beheading. So that would carry, so you could potentially go to jail for 6 months for saying there are only 2 genders, that Dylan Mulvaney is a man, and also for saying that you find anal sex disgusting. Now, the Victorian Government, they passed laws banning so-called gay and trans conversion therapy. So, like, yeah, you can't say, you can't advocate for anyone to change their identity, but the laws as such still protect your free speech to speak out against such identities if you so wish in a free and democratic society. Now, I would probably bet that if the Andrews government does put forward LGBTQ vilification laws before the parliament, they would probably be rubber stamped, approved by the Liberal opposition, since, well, they are wanting to, it seems they want to not just try and expel Moira Deeming again, they're having a second go at it, but wanting to discipline her social conservative allies. So obviously the Liberal leader, John Pesciuto, failed to expel her the first time around. Moira copped a 9-month suspension from the Liberal party room, so they're going to have another crack this Friday. Now, how did the Victorian Liberals reach another crisis point? Well, it seemed to all start with a former Liberal leader, Matthew Guy, 2-time election loser to Dan Andrews, his podcast appearance on Neil Mitchell's 3AW Y show. It went for an hour, but what probably stood out in this podcast was Matthew Guy's shot across the bow of Sky News.
Of course, you've got your own media outlet, Sky News.
No, I disagree with that. I think Sky After Dark is more akin to the One Nation Party than the Liberal Party. In fact, I think they're incredibly damaging to the Liberal Party.
Really? In what way?
Well, a number of them are former Labor Party members, and I mean, I never worked for the Labor Party. Some of the Sky, I never handed out for the Labor Party, like some of those at Sky After Dark who now criticise the Liberal Party and say what we stand for. I mean, some are dangerously politically stupid, and you know, I don't have much time for some of them. During the day, Sky is excellent. I find Sky excellent during the day. It just kind of takes a, you know, kind of, it's like a pumpkin that changes. The carriage goes into a pumpkin after, you know, when the sun goes down.
What about Peter Credlin? She didn't work for the Labor Party. She had a very senior position within the Abbott government.
I don't want to personally attack her, but, you know, she's no friend of mine, quite obviously.
Why? Did she hurt you?
Well, you know, I was a supporter of Malcolm Turnbull, and she was the chief staff of Tony Abbott. That's like, you know, it's like asking a South Australian to barrack for Collingwood, isn't it?
Supporter of Malcolm Turnbull, you wouldn't admit to that now, would you?
Well, no, absolutely I would. Absolutely,
He's
I would.
turned on the Liberal Party.
Look, you know, I don't like what Malcolm says in parts about the Liberal Party, but you know, I'm not going to be so disloyal as to turn on someone like that.
Now, Matthew Guy was probably referring to when he said Labor people at Sky News. In the 80s, Andrew Bolt worked for the Hawke Labor government. And obviously they have Graham Richardson and Nicholas Rees, openly Labor people, as panelists on Sky After Dark. And I was also informed that Rita Panahi, in her misguided youth, was part of Young Labor, but she certainly, as we can see, matured quite a bit since then. So that came out on the Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, Moira, she decided in her first question in the Legislative Council since her suspension from the Liberal Party room, decided to ask of the Andrews government minister for corrections about biological males, trans women being in female prisons. So still wanting to tackle an issue important to her, pursue it with the Andrews government without fear or intimidation.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is for the Minister for Corrections. Could the Minister please outline the processes and procedures which currently allow biological male criminals who identify as female to be imprisoned in female prisons?
Minister.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Ms Deeming, for that question. I think your long-standing interest on this topic is well publicised. What I will say is that the policies and procedures in terms of prisoner placements more broadly, there's a department obviously that looks at these matters, and prisoner placements are made in the interest of the individual prisoner, with obviously the safety and security needs of the system as a whole, including the safety of other prisoners also considered. So broadly speaking, that's the broad policy. But that's a decision for Corrections Victoria to make, and it's not my place to go into individual prisoner placements. I know the context in which you're asking this question because you've been quite public about it. But what I will say is that as a government, we're committed to the safety of all prisoners and everyone in our system, including trans prisoners. I think that's important to point out as a government. We have a number of policies as well for looking for improvements in relation to this area. Our government's established a transgender, diverse and intersex prisoner reference group to monitor issues such as those that you've raised in the past, and consider opportunities for system improvements related to the management of transgender, diverse and intersex prisoners. And as a government, we're proud to embrace all Victorians. Thank you.
So that was the Minister Enver Erdogan, and obviously has the same name as the Turkish president, so he's of Turkish ethnicity, though I don't think the president of Turkey would give such a, well, wouldn't allow men in women's prison to begin with. Now, that was on Wednesday. On Wednesday night, Peter Credlin broke the story that Liberal leader John Pesciuto had been accused of bullying the party room secretary, Renee Heath, a friend of Moira's, for not properly tabling the minutes of the meeting where Moira was suspended for 9 months. So Renee, in an email, said that she had been reduced to tears. Then on Thursday, Moira sent out an email, and what stood out, because there had been a negotiation for the last 2 months that they were agreeing on the terms of Moira's suspension. And so so Moira, this is the second page of her email. So she said that I know that despite any differences we may have, this is ultimately what we all want, and our supporters want us to do better. Given the leadership did not make the statement of exoneration or confirm my return, and that no mediation or even minutes exist to settle this dispute, I've advised my lawyers to prepare a legal challenge over my suspension, because I believe we need to come together as colleagues and have a do-over meeting. If my suspension is reconfirmed, then we can make sure the conditions are explicitly agreed upon, and we can all get back to working for Victorians. If the motion is put, then we can work through that instead. Now, that Thursday morning, Moira sent out that email, I think around midday. Former leader Matthew Guy, again, emerged from the cave that he was apparently in until Neil Mitchell's podcast. This is what he and the member for Brighton, Liberal member for Brighton, James Newbury, said about, well, it didn't name anyone explicitly, but you can probably put together who they were talking about. This was an ABC News Melbourne report.
A house divided against itself cannot stand.
There's a couple of terrorists within the parliamentary party who need to work out whether they want to sit with the parliamentary party or not.
The latest round of the Victorian Liberal Party's civil war has gone public.
There are 3 or 4 terrorists
who care more about blowing up the Liberal Party than they do Daniel Andrews.
I haven't seen what James Newby said, but I wouldn't give it any credence at all.
The inflammatory analysis was in response to allegations that John Pesutto bullied rookie MP Renee Heath over the way she took party room minutes.
That's not correct.
A particular concern, minutes from the March meeting, which ultimately suspended outspoken MP Moira Deeming.
At no time was John discourteous, disrespectful. I never saw anything that could possibly be construed as that.
Do you think Renee has been mistreated?
I think she's had a tough time.
I'm not going to comment.
Is John a bully, though?
I'm not going to comment.
Amid these claims, the exiled Miss Deeming issued a demand that John Pesutto publicly exonerate her of being affiliated with Nazis or face legal action. Her demands weren't met by 2 p.m, so she's suing the leader to get reinstated to the party room. In response, MPs are already plotting to remove her permanently.
Nothing in the dossier ever accused Moira Deeming of being a Nazi or herself having Nazi sympathy.
The challenge for Mr Pesutto has been to reform and unite his party. Nearly 5 months into the job, that feels a long way off.
If people don't want to be a part of that reform project, then I think it's important that they consider their position. Do they want to remain in the parliament long term?
The infighting comes at a time when Daniel Andrews faces repeated questions about his integrity, with a looming horror budget in 2 weeks' time.
I'm sick and tired of the Liberal Party talking about itself, and it seems to be that every single day we come into Parliament we're talking about ourselves.
If the Liberal Party care about occupational health and safety, they ought to dob their leader into work cover.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
That's the last thing John Pesutto needs. Richard Willingham, ABC News, Melbourne.
Now, on Friday evening, the second motion to expel Moira Deeming from the Liberal Party room was put forth not by the leadership team, but by 5 MPs who put their name for it. So James Newbury, the member for Brighton, Bernie Finn, who was also kicked out of the Liberal Party room in the last Parliament by by a push led by the second signatory to that letter, Matthew Guy, member for Borleen. Bernie Finn calls James Newbury the buffhead from Brighton. Cindy McLeish, the member for Eldon, she is a former deputy state Liberal leader. Roma Britnell, the member for South West Coast, and Wayne Farnham, who is the new member for Narragain, certainly making his mark, signing that expulsion motion. And so on Saturday morning, Moira released a statement that she said that, as is now clear from the minutes that have finally been published, the Victorian Parliamentary Liberal Party agreed on March 27 that no one was accusing me of being a Nazi or Nazi sympathizer. And so we go on to the second page here. Actually, go back to the first page here that said, there it is. I have never once considered suing the Liberal Party, and reports that I have or had planned to do so are false. It is important to clarify here that I was only contemplating legal assistance, mediation as a way of helping me negotiate to settle conditions of my suspension and see what was agreed in the party room in March honoured. To date, others on acting on my behalf have been working with the Liberalship team to help resolve this issue. Moreover, when I was told on Thursday night the leadership team had rejected my request for a legally mediated redo of the meeting to properly settle the conditions of my suspension, I immediately advised the Victorian Liberal Party President, Mr. Greg Mirabella, that I would pursue it no further. And it goes on the second page here. I'm now moving on. I was elected as a Liberal. I remain a proud Liberal, and I look forward to rejoining the Liberal Party room at the end of the year. But that statement on Saturday, it didn't stop the second expulsion motion against Moira going forward. And in fact, there is a push now to discipline some of Moira's supporters, and which if I just bring this up here. I've got so many photos here tonight. I'll see if I can. Oh, I thought I downloaded this photo here. Never mind. Move on. But yes, I was going to show a photo of Moira. There was a photo of her and her supporters at a hotel in Western Victoria. So that basically is a summary of all of Moira and her friends that appear to be in the leadership's targets. And we had Peter Dutton on Friday threatening a federal Liberal intervention. And now, of course, Dan Andrews, he must be laughing at this dysfunction in the opposition, if you can call them that, opposition to Dan Andrews. Thankfully, they've got 3.5 years, the Victorian Liberals, to sort themselves out before the 2026 state election. Dan Andrews, he's pledged he is going to serve a full 4-year term. That hasn't quelled the speculation. He will retire and hand over to his anointed socialist left successor, Deputy Premier Jacinta Allen, though Dan Andrews, he could pretty much, it seems like at this stage, if he chose to, be Premier Dictator for life, since there is hardly an opposition. And he continues to waste the Victorian taxpayers' money. This was an ad for his suburban rail loop, a manager for inclusion and diversity with a salary of up to $239,000. So why, for a construction project, like what do they do? It's pretty good money if you're on that grift, that gravy train there. So it says here, the ad here, that we are on the lookout for people with drive, expertise, fresh ideas, and new perspectives to deliver Victoria's biggest ever infrastructure project, which is at the moment projected to cost $125 billion. It will no doubt be longer than that. Now, Dan Andrews, Victorian Police Commissioner today, he said sorry, not to the Victorians he has forced brutalised during lockdown, but to Indigenous Victorians who police actions have traumatised. So this was there's a truth-telling inquiry set up by the Dan Andrews government. So he said, as police commissioner and on behalf of Victoria Police, I formally and unreservedly apologise for police actions that have caused and contributed to the trauma experienced by so many Aboriginal families in our jurisdiction. And Dan Andrews last week, because he didn't like the Reserve Bank of Australia raising interest rates again to continue to flatten the curve of inflation. In my opinion, we should be going for inflation zero. Dan Andrews accused the Reserve Bank of smashing families. Well, you are the one who smashed families and businesses with your lockdowns, Dan Andrews. He's probably more concerned about the fact that if interest rates go up, the interest bill increases on Victoria's state debt. And now, also today, we had Dan Andrews announce that from 2024, after a trial in Ballarat, digital driver's licenses would be rolled out for Victorian motorists. So this would be held. Your digital driver's license would be held in the Service Victoria app. Remember that app, which was the QR code contact tracing scan-in app. And now a lot of Victorians would have deleted their Service Victoria app after COVID check-ins thankfully ended. So I don't know if this is a way to get people to download it again, which in theory, the government could know where you are all the time if the app is active in your pocket. New South Wales has had its digital driver's license for years, and so everyone still has the service New South Wales app there. Now, elsewhere in Australia, if we go up to New South Wales, last week, Kiralee Smith, who is the head of Binary Australia, the New South Wales Police hit her with an apprehended personal violence order, APVO, on behalf of a trans activist. Police landed the cease and desist order at her door on March 31. They alleged the binary director engaged in the electronic harassment of a biological male who currently plays as a transgender female in the Women's Football League. Carrying the story, feminist news website Redux reported that the AVO relates to Smith highlighting widespread reports of the fake female, I'm quoting from Cauldron Pool here, had injured actual female players. As a consequence of defending these women, Smith was ordered not to discuss or approach the protected person. This is despite the fact that Smith lives over 200 miles from her alleged victim. And so the punishment for a refusal to comply with an AVPO could see Smith arrested, then faced with a criminal offence such as assault or malicious damage. Penalties for breaching a AVPO include a $5,500 fine and imprisonment for up to 2 years. So Kiralee told Redux, if the court determines that the affronted protected person APO is justified, she could be criminally charged. So this Cauldron Pool article says the same LGBT lawfare activists who unjustly crushed Marika Ranci could use existing poorly constructed and broad New South Wales vilification legislation to silence the binary spokesman. This is by Division 5, Section 38R, titled Transgender Vilification. So she could face charges of inciting hatred, showing serious contempt or ridicule for trans activism, or the biological man posing as a biological female. So New South Wales is actually ahead of Victoria in curbing free speech. Already has LGBT vilification laws that covered last week. That is what Alex Greenwich, that's one of his he's using that as part of his three-pronged attack on Mark Latham. Now, Alex Greenwich was defended last week by former Christian Democrat MLC Fred Nile. So Nile, who is obviously opposed LGBT policies over his time in Parliament, contacted Greenwich this week to offer his full support after Mark Latham's homophobic slurs against the independent MP. So Fred Nile insisted he wants the openly gay Sydney MP to know that he is loved and does not deserve to be subjected to personal attacks based on his sexuality. He and his wife Sylvia called Greenwich to say that he is loved and does not deserve to be subject to a character assassination. I just felt he was being treated unfairly in the way Mark Latham was attacking him, and wanted to know that somebody does have sympathy for him, and that's me. Sylviana said leadership in politics needed to be about brotherly love, because God said, love thy neighbor as you love yourself. And your neighbor could be a Muslim, a member of the LGBT community, or a Christian. We have different parties, different belief systems. Everyone has a right to be heard, but it should be done by debate, not character assassination. Never mind the fact that Alex Greenwich started it all by calling Mark Latham a disgusting human being. That's not brotherly love there coming from Alex Greenwich there. And now we also have the Deputy Greens leader, Marine Faruqi. She is suing One Nation leader, Pauline Hanson, under the Racial Discrimination Act, is seeking $150,000 in damages, which she would say would go to charity and anti-racism education. In a statement released this week, Faruqi said she had taken on bullies her whole life, but had no choice to take on the One Nation leader. And I'll do her voice. I refuse to let Senator Hanson get away with racist bullying and harassment, she said. Senator Hanson crossed the line when she tweeted those hateful comments, and I am hoping the federal court puts an end to this pattern of bigotry. So this was in regards to Pauline Hanson responding to Pakistani-born Faruqi, saying she would not mourn the Queen who presided over a racist regime built on stolen land and wealth. And so Pauline Hanson said that Australia had been good to Faruqi, giving her the chance to own multiple homes and work as a parliamentarian. She then said that if Faruqi didn't like it in Australia, she should pack her bags and piss off back to Pakistan. Hanson defended her comments and denied that she is racist. In fact, in Parliament, Pauline Hanson said, in fact, I'll offer to drive Faruqi to the airport. And so Pauline Hanson has said that this is lawfare. They're trying to, the Greens are trying to bankrupt her, so she loses her seat in Parliament. And now, interesting fact is that Marine Faruqi's son, Osman Faruqi, sued Mark Latham over a rebel media broadcast, I think back in 2017, which was settled out of court there. Now, going federal, there is, of course, the much anticipated and talked about federal budget. And now it looks like that it has been leaked to the media that there could be a surprise surplus, but Treasurer Jim Chalmers has said this is due to the surge in commodity prices and a better jobs market, so it won't last. We still have structural deficits going forward, such as the NDIS being the biggest item on the budget, which is also where all the Reuters are trying to get in on. There's lots of fraud already happening with the NDIS, with fraudsters trying to get some of the bucket of government money. The Labor Party is trying to give its base something, so it is increasing the job seeker payment across the board. There's going to be a bump up for over 55s, where it's harder to get back into the workforce. Obviously, with the government allowing in 650,000 migrants in over the next 2 years, jobs are going to be harder to go by. Obviously, with unemployment so low, jobs were literally growing on trees unfilled. But if you let in a whole bunch of new people, then there's going to be more unemployed people. So this is obviously going to cost the budget more going forward as well. And also, there is going to be an increase on the gas bill for gas producers, with the petroleum resource rent tax going up as well. So Airbus Elbow, as he's known, he's touched back down in Australia after he was in the UK for nearly a whole week to attend the coronation of King Charles III. While he was there, he sat down for an hour interview with Piers Morgan on his Talk TV program, which it's been going for a year now. It obviously started off with terrible ratings, but it seems that he's managed to get all the big names on his show, such as Yee, Andrew Tate, Stormy Daniels. So they get a lot of views online as well, and online ratings views count just as much these days as television views there. And amongst the hour interview, Piers Morgan asked Anthony Albanese the scientific question of our time.
The New Zealand Prime Minister, Chris Hipkins, was asked to define a woman, and he said, well, people identify for themselves. He couldn't answer. And it was excruciating to watch, to be honest with you. And this has been a sort of hot potato question for world leaders. Some of them seem incapable, including Keir Starmer here. What is a woman, Prime Minister?
An adult female.
How difficult was that to answer?
Not too hard. I was asked. I was asked during the campaign, actually. But I think that we need to. I think I respect people for whoever they are, and it's up to people to to be respected. And I know that there is some controversy can come at times like that, and I'm not a fan of some of the campaign. There was recently a very controversial visit in Australia that was designed to stir up issues, and people who are, young people coming to terms with their identity and who they are. I think that they need to be respected as well.
And now Anthony Albanese, who was also asked by Piers Morgan, how come you're attending the coronation even though you're a Republican? And he said as Prime Minister, he has to respect that the current constitutional monarchy arrangement is what the Australian people are comfortable with. I mean, the 1999 Republican referendum was voted down, and the ALP, you have to be a Republican to be a Labor MP. And of course, Albanese has the Minister for the Republic, Matt Thistlethwaite, but he recognises that Australians don't want a republic at this stage, though that is the plan of the Labor Party. If the voice gets up, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait voice referendum gets up this year, they're going to aim for a Republican referendum in their second term. Now, the coronation, it was on all of the networks on Saturday evening, Australian time. But it was the ABC coverage that has been rightfully condemned for its politicization. It featured, of course, Stan Tan Grant, along with co-chair of the Australian Republican movement and social justice warrior Craig Foster. So the sole monarchist that they had on this drum panel, which was hosted by Julia Baird and Jeremy Fernandez, was Julian Lisa. So on this 1 hour program, so we had from Stan Grant, there is no Indigenous foundation, no Indigenous heritage to Australia. Australia sought to erase the Indigenous heritage. We weren't at the Federation discussions. We weren't at the table. Indeed, we weren't counted when the Constitution was written. And he went on to say that we don't read history in a linear way. It is scars, it is broken bones, and it is damaged souls, and we need to heal and bring love to the hearing. This conversation is so important. I'm so glad we can have this because it is necessary. And David Hiscock on the XYZ said, in Clownwood in the current year, anti-white hatred is love. Anti-white grifter Craig Foster, if he still states the great replacement, chimed in. I was taught that the Crown and monarchy was a wonderful institution. They're above accountability. The wonderful thing in 2023 is everyone is accountable. So it goes on here, at the heart of the wound of this nation is the Crown, and yet the Crown has been above reproach. What I find really interesting in this period in our history is we are going back in time to learn truth so we can genuinely understand each other and walk forward together. And at the heart of those untruths is the monarchy. So we need to unite by attacking one of the institutions that founded modern Australia there. Now, Yeah, Tan Grant is just getting worse and worse, and the ABC is probably too scared to sideline him because they'd be scared of being sued for racial discrimination, or it will be called by the Twitter drips silencing an Indigenous voice. Even though Stan Grant 30 years ago, he wasn't he didn't have this victim. This victim mentality, and in fact was a lot lighter than he is now. And a lot of people noticed that on a recent episode of Q&A, he had a wardrobe malfunction where Spray Tan Stan forgot to do up his top button, and you can see a very white looking chest there. I mean, so it seems that Tan Grant just puts the bronzer on the face and doesn't do the rest of his body there. Credit to the person who picked up that wardrobe malfunction there. I'm sure that that Tan Grant will be more careful in the future. Now, there was disgustingly, there was over the coronation weekend, there was a red paint poured all over the statue of Queen Victoria at the Queen Victoria Gardens. To the morons who vandalized Queen Victoria's statue, who do you think the estate of Victoria is named after? And also, the state of Queensland is also named. It was named with Queen Victoria in mind because she was the reigning monarch then. And obviously, yeah, we have the Queen Victoria Gardens, the Queen Victoria market. As far as I know, there's no push to change the name of the state of Victoria, but I shouldn't give them any ideas. But there was also some vandalism of the lawns of Windsor Castle, where the coronation concert was held. With had Lionel Richie and Katy Perry amongst other performers. Some person, they mowed a penis into the crescent there. I didn't know that Andy Nolch was in London there to do that. I wonder if he is caught, he'll get the same punishment when he spray painted the dick on Eurydice Dixon's memorial. Now let's go over to the United States and an update on one of our favorite conservative MAGA patriot personalities, Tucker Carlson. So the Axios news website claimed that they had this scoop that Tucker Carlson, he's preparing to unleash allies to attack Fox News because they have been leaking against Tucker. So he's still contracted to Fox News. There still has to be an exit package negotiated. So their speculation is that Carlson, he could launch his own media empire. He has had offers from Rumble, the YouTube alternative, and Newsmax, which a lot of former Fox News viewers are switching to. In the 8 p.m. time slot, Fox News for this week, they've selected Kayleigh McEnroe, Donald Trump's former press secretary. So bringing a big gun in. A lot of people have a tweet replied to her saying, sorry, Kayleigh, but in principle, we're not going to be watching Fox News again. Now, Media Matters managed to get their hands on some clips of Tucker Carlson when he was in the studio, but it was not broadcast, because whenever you're in a mainstream media studio, you're being recorded, even though it's not aired. And this is some of the damaging hot mic moments that Tucker Carlson said when the cameras were off.
You wouldn't? Okay. I'm not, you know what? I'm not qualified on that score, I will say. I thought his girlfriend was kind of yummy. Just kidding, in case this is being pulled off the bird. Yeah, the bird. Hey, Media Matters for America. Go fuck yourself. That's the first thing I want to say tonight. Second thing is, totally kidding, I don't even know what his girlfriend looks like. And if I did, I would not find her yummy.
Well, there's nothing wrong or creepy about describing a good-looking woman as yummy. And I can't believe that Media Matters, they leaked a tape of a Fox News host telling them to go fuck themselves. I mean, that's classic. And one of the most probably the longest clips that was released, I won't play it because it is long, is Tucker Carlson saying that the Fox Nation website sucks and that's why he doesn't like to upload much content. And he's on the call to somebody, and he's being, even though he says he's voicing his displeasure, he's being extremely civil and moderate in his language. He's not going off his rocker like, say, Bill O'Reilly was known to do, which Tucker Carlson, he off the cut that was released was Tucker Carlson mocking Bill O'Reilly's infamous "fuck it, we'll do it live" meltdown.
Fuck it, we'll do it live!
Now, I'm sure you've seen that clip of Bill O'Reilly saying "we'll do it live, fuck it" from Inside Edition. As somebody who's now broadcasting themselves, you can get frustrated when things are malfunctioning, so you can lose your temper from time to time. Now, who is leaking this stuff? It clearly came from Fox News. Megyn Kelly, former Fox News host, has said that the person she believes is responsible is Irina Brigante, the PR executive at Fox. So Megyn Kelly has said that she doesn't like because, in Megyn Kelly's words, she betrayed the sisterhood when she and others were telling their stories about Roger Ailes' sexual harassment, which saw him exit the network. Now, Fox News has issued a cease and desist to Media Matters, stop publishing the videos. If Fox has given these videos to Media Matters, a liberal supposed media watchdog, then that is such a scumbag move. And in fact, it has increased people's respect for Tucker Carlson, because he is not an arsehole behind the scene. He does not disparage his audience. He made some comment about, hope I look good for my post-menopausal fans, which I didn't see anything disparaging about that. Same with calling a woman yummy. So Tucker Carlson, in all of them, he just looks like he looks the same off camera as he is on the camera, which doesn't surprise me. He always came across as a genuine bloke, unlike Sean Hannity, who's a complete phony. And it also looked like he was a hoot to work for as well. I mean, he didn't abuse his staff. They seem to be having a good time there. Now, while Fox News continues its ratings slide, the liberal media, former big players, are collapsing. So we saw the closure of BuzzFeed News, and also Vice Media has filed for bankruptcy, but they could be saved by George Soros investment management firm, the Fortress Investment Group. So they are nearing a deal to purchase Vice Media Group in a deal worth $400 million. And this is more like a Soros bailout. So it was once valued at $5.7 billion. Other stockholders holding the debt with the company are TPG Group, Sixth Street Partners, and James Murdoch, son of, obviously, Rupert Murdoch. James Murdoch, he left the Fox Corporation because the woman that he married, he turned him into a lefty liberal. So Lachlan is the designated successor. So this is why Rupert Murdoch sold 21st Century Fox to Disney, so he could give his sons their inheritance before he died. And so James Murdoch, he's been spending his inheritance, the Fox Media empire profits, by donating to Joe Biden's re-election campaign there, and he obviously has good. He obviously didn't have the best media senses if he's gone on to invest in Vice Media there. Now on to more serious, alarming matters, and we have the radical left, the violent Marxist, wanting to launch BLM 3.0, and so on both sides of the US coast. So over in New York City, so there was this 30-year-old violent repeat offender homeless man, Jordan Neely, had over 40 prior arrests. He died after he was put in a chokehold by former Marine Corps veteran Daniel Penny. He was behaving aggression towards passengers, so being a responsible citizen and wanting to safeguard the other passengers, put him on a chokehold, but once he was subdued, put him in a recovery position. But Jordan Neely died. Now, because the video of the full exchange is going around on Twitter, where you can see there, it's not a brutalizing there. And now the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, a Democrat and a former policeman. He has law enforcement experience, so he's actually a sane Democrat. He on CNN, he defended. He didn't defend. He didn't defend. I shouldn't say. Daniel Penny. He said, like, look, let's allow due process and a proper investigation.
So one of the reasons that this story is really hitting a nerve is because this man appeared to be having mental health issues. This is something that you've talked a lot about, but I want to read to you. This is a response from the comptroller, Brad Lander. He tweeted this: New York City is not Gotham. We must not become a city where mentally ill human can be choked to death by a vigilante without consequence. There's also this from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Democratic Congresswoman. She said, Jordan Neely was murdered. What is your response to what they're saying here?
Well, both the Congresswoman and the controller is a citywide leader. And I don't think that's very responsible at the time where we're still investigating the situation. Let's let the DA conduct his investigation with the law enforcement officials. To really interfere with that is not the right thing to do. And I'm going to be responsible and allow them to do their job and allow them to determine exactly what happened here.
Well, such rational remarks there from the New York mayor there. He's a massive improvement on that communist Bill de Blasio, but I wouldn't trust the DA district attorney in Manhattan, which is Alvin Bragg, to be fair on this case, given that he has launched that rubbish indictment on Donald Trump for allegedly falsifying business records there. But thankfully, over in San Francisco, they have a quite rational district attorney who her name is Brooke Jenkins. Now, there was a trans black man who was shot dead by a Walgreens security guard who was trying to rob that store. So it got violent, and so the Walgreens security guard opened fire. And so Banco Brown was this trans black man's name. And obviously San Francisco has an horrific crime problem across violent cities in the United States. Walgreens, Target, Walmart, they're closing down their stores there because it's just too dangerous. I mean, you see just they're not even smash and grabs, people just going in and lifting things out. So this is the District Attorney, Brooke Jenkins of San Francisco, who is also black, like Eric Adams, explaining why she is not going to prosecute this security guard.
Really, as a prosecutor, there's no tougher job than to have to review these types of cases and really make a determination that we know is going to disappoint a community and a family. In this particular instance, this was a shoplifting that really, based on the facts, turned into and escalated into a robbery. And the armed security guard did ultimately end up using lethal force by firing one shot from his firearm that ultimately killed Banco Brown. We had to evaluate the video, the statement of the security guard, multiple witness statements, to figure out whether or not there was a credible claim of self-defense. And we ultimately did not believe that we could prove beyond a reasonable doubt here that the security guard had committed murder or any other crime.
Now, Brooke Jenkins is also a massive improvement on the former recalled DA of San Francisco, Chesa Bowden, who is the son of two Weather Underground terrorists. They were those communist terrorists in the 60s and 70s who conducted robberies and bombings. So because his parents were imprisoned, he was raised by two other Weather Underground terrorists who were not in prison at that time. One of them was Bill Ayers, who was one of Barack Obama's neighbors in Chicago. But of course, because this was, well, it's not just the death of a black man, but a trans black man. San Francisco is now apparently it's a dangerous place for trans and black people, and so a bunch of unhinged trans activists, they turned up to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors meeting to demand something. The Board of Supervisors in San Francisco is like the City Council. So the loudest voice, literally, was apparent trans person Leah McGeever. This was her contribution to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors.
There's a lot of performative people on this board who will say one thing in support of black people, homeless people, trans people, and then immediately stab you in the face, being racist, transphobic, anti-homeless. So I don't have any words prepared today. I just want you to feel our pain. I don't know if you can at this point based off your policy choices, but I have to pretend you have some form of empathy left. So I am going to spend the next minute screaming, because that is what is going on in here. That is what the trans genocide in this country, in this city, has brought me to.
Now, that thing, it looks to me like a biological female there. And, you know, a word of advice for you, for you lady there, Leah McGeever, another trans person called Leah, because she's still wearing a mask even though, like, did she get the memo that the Biden administration and the WHO have said the COVID emergency is over? Shaving your head does not make you a trans person. And if you're worried about a COVID, I would suggest that you lose 20 kilos rather than just wear a useless mask everywhere. And she is living in a Democrat controlled county, Democrat controlled state. In San Francisco, they're actually proposing to give millions and millions of dollars in reparations to African Americans because their great ancestors were slaves in other states. But it's not good enough for her, and so they are apparently oppressors there. And like, if you created an SJW trans COVID cult character, you couldn't do better than this real thing here. I mean, like, that was both hilarious and incredible there. But sadly, we have to move on to more tragic news. There have been 2 mass shootings in Texas this past week, both allegedly perpetrated by Hispanic men. So the first one, this was on April 29. Francisco Horpeso, a Mexican national who'd previously been deported from the United States, shot 5 people dead. They were all Honduran immigrants, including an 8-year-old child from inside his home. He was shooting inside his home. When he was told to keep it down, he shot 5 of his neighbors. This was in Cleveland, Texas. He was on the run for 4 days until he was finally apprehended. So this was near Cut and Shoot, Texas. And we also had on May the 6th, we had Mauricio Garcia shot dead 8 people on Saturday at Allen Premium Outlets in Allen, Texas. He was killed by a nearby police officer. There's rumors that he's still alive. Now, this Daily Mail article said that so he worked as a security guard and is believed he had neo-Nazi white supremacist beliefs. And this is because apparently he wore a patch RWDS, which is an acronym for right-wing death squads. And I noticed that Slack Bastard on Twitter today, when he was tweeting about this, said, "Oh, look, Tim Wills from the Unshackled, he's previously worn his Pinochet did nothing wrong shirt, which also has right-wing death squad on the side there." So clearly trying to make a connection there. So may I quote Tucker Carlson? "Hey, Slack Bastard, go fuck yourself." Now on to the rest of this story here. So apparently he was a neo-Nazi white supremacist, but to talk to his parents, they needed a translator to speak with his family. But he was listed as white on a previous booking shot. I mean, he looks very white there. Mauricio Garcia, his race is listed as white there. Now, obviously, I'm not alluding by pointing out that these alleged perpetrators are 2 Hispanic men. I'm just, well, this is the thing. Every mass shooting, there's got to be a political angle to it. And Texas is like, it's very brown now, almost as brown as California. That's why the Democrats think they can finally flip Texas. Now, we are getting to the end of the show without going too insane over time. And now you'll remember last week that the Kremlin claimed that they downed two drones that were flying over the Kremlin, which they said were planning to assassinate Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin was not at the Kremlin at the time. A former CIA intelligence officer, Larry Johnson, he believes that the decision to launch the drone attack on the Kremlin was made by the United States because decisions are made in Kyiv but not Washington. I mean, this was extremely provocative. Russia said it reserves the right to respond when and how. I mean, who's closer to bringing us to World War III? Is it Putin or is it the United States aligned with Ukraine, invading Russian, being on the doorstep of Russia's, the head of Russia's government there? But remember, we're fighting for Ukraine. The US is fighting. The US military is fighting for Ukraine or assisting Ukraine, and part of their pitch to get more people to help them in wars such as Ukraine is to hire a naval officer who's also a drag queen called Harpy Daniels to be a digital ambassador, so to boost recruitment that is set to fall short by 8,000. So Joshua Kelly, who is a second class yeoman. So this was announced in a TikTok last November. He would be the Navy's first digital ambassador. Now, a spokesperson for the Navy said, like, "Oh, the partnership has ended." So this is from David Icke saying that is this the Navy's Dylan Mulvaney moment? I mean, we've just seen Fox News's Bud Light moment here. This is another funny Photoshop here. Bud Light channel. And now the coronation wasn't the only big news from the UK this week. The UK local election results occurred, and not surprisingly, it was a terrible result for the Conservative Party, and is clearly bad news for Rishi Sunak, the unelected Prime Minister who will face a general election next year. The Conservatives lost 311 seats. The Labour Party gained 48. The Liberal Democrats were the big winners. The Third Party won 75, and the Greens made a net gain of 60. And that means that the Conservative Party lost control of 10 councils. Labour will gain control of 5, and the Liberal Democrats 3. It's almost like that Rishi Sunak's Conservative government, their border policy, their border crackdown on illegal immigrants, boat arrivals, and crackdown on grooming gangs. It's almost like it's a bit of too little, too late. What have you actually been doing for 13 years? And so the people of the UK, they've clearly had enough of the Conservative Party for basically doing nothing for 13 years. In fact, the nation has gotten way worse, both economically, socially, and also the state of freedom in the UK is much worse as well. They're not running to Sir Keir Starmer and the Labour Party. The Liberal Democrats, they are the biggest beneficiaries, but it was definitely a vote against the Conservative Party there. So it's definitely the 2024 general election. It is going to be a vote against the Conservative. They're certainly wanting to get rid of Rishi, to use his use his slogan, "Ready for Rishi." They want to get rid of Rishi now, and I'd say the sooner the better. I mean, it's almost like a lame duck government, this UK Conservative government. They expelled that Andrew Bridgen from the party. They suspended him as an MP for speaking out against the jabs. They've now expelled him. So That is the sad, sobering reality of life in the UK below the pomp and ceremony of the King's coronation, which showcased the best of Britain. And as I alluded to, the World Health Organization and the Biden administration have declared that the COVID emergency is over. So the United States is now finally going to let unvaccinated federal employees back. Unvaccinated foreigners are allowed back in. So Novak Djokovic will allowed to be compete at the US Open. And you might not be aware of this, but on July 2023 here in Victoria, that the new OHS regulations will be revoked on 12th of July 2023, and then within 30 days of the revocation date, an employer must destroy any COVID-19 vaccination information it has held or recorded. So take note, everybody. All the employers that, well, they were forced to keep records of your COVID vaccinations if you got it to keep your job. They now have to destroy them by the 12th of July because, well, as our chief medical officer said, having a COVID vaccine is now private medical information now. Obviously, I had on Wilmsfront last night, John Ruddock as my guest, the New Liberal Democrats MLC for New South Wales. He says we shouldn't let them get away with it. We need people to be held accountable and also never forget, so something like this never happens again. So there is no way that the Biden administration and the World Health Organization should be let off the hook. In fact, the World Health Organization is still planning its pandemic treaty. That's it from Wilmsfront tonight. Oh, sorry, Tim's News Explosion tonight. I was just talking about Wilmsfront. I haven't got a Wilmsfront planned this Sunday, but I might, so stay tuned for that. But I'll definitely be back here same time next Monday for another Tim's News Explosion. And of course, stay on the lookout for a new report from Tiger Mountain with Richard Wollstonecroft later in the week. And remember, if you don't like to send super chats but want to support The Unshackled, you can take out a premium membership. Bronze $5 per month, silver $10 per month, gold $25 per month, and platinum $50 per month. So thank you everyone for watching once again. Also visit theunshackled.net. It's got our Unshackled Productions archives and articles. In the meantime, stay safe, stay sane. Stay warm at the moment because it's so cold here in Melbourne at the moment. Stay happy and stay optimistic and stay sane as well. Good night, everybody.
Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.